Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Frankly Saturdays. Alongside myself is Helgi. Really looking forward to this one as always. If you can, before we get started, like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and we really appreciate all the support that you guys have for us. So today we do have quite a bit to talk about. First off, we do have the match review from Udinese yesterday, which was saw Chelsea win 3-1, as well as Raheem Sterling get his first goal as a Blue. And then we also will continue to talk about Raheem Sterling, the impact he will have, as well as Kalidou Koulibaly and how he's looked so far. And then we will have some speculation as far as what else might happen before this transfer window slams shut at the end of next month. So if we can, Elgi, I'll let you go ahead and start with just some general comments. What was your biggest takeaway from a team standpoint yesterday against Udinese?
Yeah, the key takeaway is that at 80 or 85%, it was the reaction we needed after that Arsenal defeat. So we had a much more composed and solid performance overall compared to that lethargic game when we were comprehensively beaten. And today it was the opposite of that in terms of the fluidity and the chemistry that we had among the lines, and particularly the mobility of the attackers was one of the key takes of the game, when Mount, Havertz, and Sterling rotated very well with each other. Also, another positive was the fact that we had a very good performance to watch from the midfield pivot, despite the fact that N'Golo Kante in particular wasn't with the team for the majority of preseason due to his vaccination status. He still had a very good performance, and furthermore strengthens my point of keeping him as a decent squad player. So courtesy of what we discussed in the Keep Low and Sell episode, when I said that he is a valuable squad member if his physical condition is well managed. And yesterday he proved that both on and off the ball, and scored a very, very, very good goal from just outside the box. And also Jorginho was very forward-minded. One of the biggest criticism from people who don't really like his style of play is that they pretend for him to be very predictable on the ball. Yesterday was the opposite. He was very forward-minded, played vertically, switched the play a lot, and also helped us score the second goal by assisting Raheem Sterling, or pre-assisting because it came off a rebound, but still he gave the key pass. And because I mentioned Sterling, I think both him and Koulibaly as new signings had some very decent performance, periods of performance. So despite the fact that Sterling could have had one or two more once he got unlucky when he hit the post of a deflection, but still it was a game that when he played very well, and I think he settled well both on and off the ball with his drops in the midfield to overload the center, which helped us a lot to penetrate through that 3-5-2 that Udinese deployed. And also on the ball, he was very silky, very interesting to watch, always with the intention to take people on and to help us to give rhythm and to make sure that the attack is in synchrony. So he contributed a lot in this aspect. I'm happy that he found the net for us. And Koulibaly also had a very solid display, especially one. I said it even before he came at us, that one of his strongest features at Napoli has always been ground tackling, and he demonstrated this ability of him yesterday very well. And also on the ball, he was so composed, solid in that left center back roles, and we hope that he will really become a very splendid player for us, because he has all the capabilities to do so, along with Sterling. Finally, for me, there were a couple of negatives. One of them was the annoying refrain that we have had to repeat and repeat and repeat from the previous years, which has to do with the lack of clinicality in front of the goal. We should have scored way more compared to, so in proportion to the intensity of the game we played and the number of chances we created. And another negative was the goal we conceded as a whole. First of all, it was a very avoidable goal, all things considered. We gave too much time and space to the guy that shoot the ball before Mendy made the save, and then the Lofeu bounced on the capitalized on the rebound. And I think Mendy could have done better in both cases. Yeah. But still, these things have to improve. But overall, I don't want to be harsh because it was a calming performance compared to what we watched against Arsenal. So we have to follow it both on the pitch and on the market in the coming days and weeks. Your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, so I didn't get to watch a whole lot. I had to watch some highlights of the match. I had a practice session with the team I coached yesterday during the match, but from what I did see, I did see like all of Sterling's involvements on the ball, like in a single compilation, and I was really, really impressed. And I know it's preseason. I'm not going to make mountains out of molehills, but I had this kind of thought, and I know we talked about on this show, that if Sterling is able to use his dribbling to basically beat down the low blocks and get past them to create chances, that we're going to have a great player on our hands for what we're trying to do. And I saw a lot of that throughout the preseason, even in his first match that he appeared in at Charlotte. He did a lot of that, right? He had that one run where he beat through, kind of went through everybody, put it to the back post, just nobody was there. I saw more of that yesterday. His ability to get on the ball and just take people on directly is going to be a massive asset, because although that we have people like Christian Pulisic who do try to take people on, he's not as nearly successful at it, just from the eye test at least, as Raheem Sterling is. So I'm really intrigued by what I saw from Raheem Sterling. And the comment here as well was from Ike Icy, is saying that Sterling at false 9 is surprising. I don't know how surprising it is, the fact that because even in that first match against Charlotte, he really was drifting centrally pretty often away from that left spot. So he wasn't like he was staying out wide. He was getting into central positions enough to the point where it did make me notice. And, maybe this is a start of something good. Maybe we can play him because he is a better goal threat, in my opinion. And I think the data backs it up pretty well, too, is that he's a much bigger goal threat than Kai Havertz is. And that's just where I'm at this point. If he's going to be able to score and have basically more clinicality than Kai does up front, then perhaps we do have a player that can occupy that, preferred center forward, false 9, whatever term you really want to use to describe the way in which Tuchel is non-traditionally using a number 9. I think he can work out really well for us. Very, very intrigued, very, very encouraged by what I've seen this preseason from Raheem Sterling. And I'd go as far to say is, based on what I've seen so far, what he's able to do is something that nobody else that is really able to do within our attack on our front three specifically. And I feel pretty comfortable saying Sterling is, in the preseason at least, he was by far our best attacker, and it wasn't all that close. I just think the impact he had far exceeds anybody else's impact thus far. And I think that he's going to open up a lot more than we think that he will. And I saw that yesterday. The goal was well worked. He had another one where he beat right through, basically was a one-on-one with the keeper, and all he could do was kind of just shovel it with his foot towards the keeper, and it just went, hit him right in the chest, and it was deflected out behind for a corner, but no goal. So I think that's what we saw more of yesterday, is that ability to basically break through direct right at the opponent. That was huge. I did notice what you noticed as well with Jorginho, which is that he does have yesterday that pass playing ability that's not, as the fan base much maligns him into saying that he does, which is, basically just passing around sterilely. Yesterday we saw that he was breaking the lines a lot more, and had that just wonderful assist right on the ground, perfectly weighted ball right to Sterling to get his first goal. So I do have to say that, I think there's some positives as far as we do know. We have this continual debate about can what formation can work. We need to switch to a back 4 and get off of this 3 at the back system. But I think that having seen preseason, a lot of our worst moments came playing back 4. And I just don't know if we have the personnel to play that off. And I don't even think that's as far as the midfield goes. I know we hear that stick that everybody beats each other with we know that we need the defensive midfielder, which I do agree we probably need to be looking for a longer term replacement for Jorginho, as well as maybe a short term so we don't run him into the ground and then lose what he does offer if he is to go off injured or if he's simply just too fatigued to continue putting in world-class performances. I do think that we need to address that, but I think the back four issue is deeper than just do we need a defensive midfielder or not. I think that the debate really is much at this point. It's showing that it's systemic. We don't have center backs that are really good at playing this. If you want to look at the numbers, Thiago Silva at Chelsea playing a back four has not had a very good time. A lot of goals conceded in those. And I just don't know if that's at his age, almost 38 years old, if he's going to be able to effectively play in a back four, because there's just so much more space for him to cover and he can position as well as he wants, but you're going to still have to occupy that space. And that's maybe where the fact that he's getting so up there in age is going to start to take that toll on his body and not let him cover those spaces as well, because there's simply more of it. And I think that's why he works so well as that central center back in a back three, is because he can really do what he's best at. And he doesn't have to actually sprint or cover as many zones as what he is in a back four. So I think that the personnel issue really goes down to the center backs we have are just not really all that capable of playing a back four. Chalobah last season did not really play in the back four much, and you even saw him kind of shuffled out wider at times. Just looking at the match from Orlando against Arsenal, where Chalobah and Silva were ripped to shreds, as well as we had Koulibaly come on, but we still conceded plenty of goals. But I think that's the issue here, is that we have this deep-seated issue with we don't really have fullbacks that are going to be good enough to play fully defensive in a back four. And I think because the reason is because we have two fullbacks that are better at creating chances in Reece and Chilwell, and taking them out of a wingback role is going to make them be much more defensive. And when you actually look at the numbers from last season, teams disproportionately attacked Chelsea's right side, which is Reece James, and created more chances and more goals from the right side. So there is sort of a caveat there that, I know he missed a decent amount of time, but we generally hear this narrative that the left side is the weak side and the right side is the strong side, but it tends to actually kind of bear out a little differently. And all of that to say, we know there's the left side issues everybody talks about with Marcos Alonso, and the fact that if Chilwell goes down again, we don't really have that covered. So I think that's kind of what was one of my big takeaways from yesterday, and just kind of the preseason in general, is that at the end of the day, we still look like we are committed to three at the back, because we don't look like we even have the correct profile personnel to play back four. And when we have played it, we either don't create chances or we're conceding goals, neither of which are achieving the objective to score one more than the opponent. So that's kind of my big takeaway from, kind of looking at Udinese as not only a microcosm, but also as a generality for the preseason. That's kind of where I'm at with that. So I think there's some encouraging signs, but I also think there are some concerning signs. And the fact is that if we can't play a back four ever, we have seen the problems with three at the back as far as chance creation goes, and how it can just really get to the point where there's not really any line-breaking passes in that final third. So there is some optimism. Maybe the three at the back gets better with these two additions. I can only see Koulibaly helping us out in that regard. He really is a two-footed player. He can play a lot of passes. He's great on the ground. He is weak in the air, which is going to be something to watch. He's very poor in the air, 20th percentile on a percentile basis in the top 5 leagues in Europe in the last 365 days. So he's very low as far as aerial duels go. That's just not his game. So we are going to need somebody to compensate that, because we've already seen that Marcos Alonso sometimes was favored on that left side because he simply offers a height advantage that we need on defending and attacking set pieces. So I think that's the only caveat I'd say with Koulibaly is what he's going to make up for on the ground. He's not going to make up for in the air. I do think he's a better player than Andreas Christensen. I don't think that he's a better player than Antonio Rudiger. So I do think that at the end of the day, we've slightly upgraded over Christensen, but we still have lost our most important backline asset in Rudiger. So we have sort of, in a way, kept things pretty balanced, I think, by keeping Koulibaly. And I think he's going to work really well in our system. I don't see any issue. I think he's going to settle well, too, having Jorginho, kind of already having that friend and past professional relationships. So really excited to see what Koulibaly can offer. I know he's getting a little up there in age, but, Silva is up there in age as well. It's going to be interesting to watch how we manage those two guys. And that's why, I wouldn't be shocked if we put another center back through the transfer window before it's over.
Yeah. I think the back three, back four discussion has been one of those, and has been the most
Yeah,
intriguing in so among the fans on Twitter especially. But I personally fall into that category of people that have always been fine with the idea of us playing in the back three with the back three
mhm.
in the current personnel.
Yeah.
So based on what we have, you treated the topic from a more defensive perspective. But even if you see the attackers, we practically don't have wingers. So
Hmm.
Pulisic is a winger, but he can't stay fit, and everyone knows that we can't really rely on him in his current shape. Hudson-Odoi has his problems as well, and we both agreed in the previous episodes that it's their last season for them to realistically prove that they are Chelsea quality.
Hmm.
And also, Werner has never been a winger. Even at Leipzig, he was more of a decoy
Hmm.
rather than an out-and-out winger or a center forward. And same can be said for Havertz. So we don't really have the personnel, both in defense and attack, to play in a system that can be overly reliant on wingers or who can make us play in a back four. And also, we don't have, as you said, the natural defensive midfielder, because Jorginho is more of a builder from deep rather than a destroyer of the opposition
Yeah.
attacks. So, totally agree on that. On Koulibaly, unlike you, I wouldn't uh, go through the discussion of comparing him with Christensen and Rudiger in this moment, because I have to keep at the back of my head the fact that um, Rudiger and Christensen, ironically, were two of the names that were first on the list of the majority of fan base to get rid of before Thomas Tuchel arrived. And now that they are gone, we have a completely different discussion. And same can be said for Koulibaly in terms of his aerial ability. So I can't judge him as long as we haven't seen him yet in that regard. He played yesterday. He played for around 70 minutes, so he hasn't played a full game for us yet.
Hmm.
And as it stands, I would rather prefer to point out what I have seen rather than trying to compare at this particular moment. I totally get your point, because stats wise, I know that his aerial stats from Napoli weren't that impressive, considering also his post and his physical capability, which gives you the impression that aerial strength and ability to win aerial duels consistently can be a feature of him, and he can do that. But as it stands, I haven't seen much to say anything in this regard, and maybe I haven't seen much to say things regarding his other attributes either. But what I saw from yesterday's game in particular was that he was um, positionally well, won some fouls in wide areas, protected the ball well. His body positioning was very decent, and as I said, the ground tackling was something that we really need to see from a Premier League defender that plays for Chelsea. So that's where I am at this point, and he has been my first choice in terms of our centre back reinforcements, and hopefully he shows that he's also great in the area of the Premier League, because in this particular moment and before the season, so when the season hasn't started yet, we can't really say anything on definite basis. But I totally get your point when you say that stats wise, that's a reality that we hope that he will improve that stat. So along with the other attributes that he already had. Um, so that's the takeaway in general, and I totally agree about your discussion also the elaboration on the back three and back four system, which falls down to the personnel, like many issues at the club at the moment, goal scoring being one. um, I don't know if you watched the second friendly. I'm trying to go through it very shortly, because uh, it was a so low key game compared to yesterday's
Hmm.
one. It was behind closed doors, and the club staff classified it as a training game rather than a preseason friendly.
Yeah.
Um, there were positives in terms of the intensity. So the Udinese played exactly the same system as yesterday night, but especially but in both games you could see the same problem, which had to do with finishing chances. Both halves of both first halves of both games, we had chances to exploit, which could have led us to score more than 2 goals. Yesterday we scored 2, and today we scored late on. So in the stoppage time of the first half, Loftus-Cheek, after a great pass from Kovacic, who for me was the best in the first half. Disappointed was particularly with Pulisic. He was pretty much invincible and didn't offer much threat through his. So when he was on the ball. Another interesting discussion has to do, which I got the impression from the game, was Ruben Loftus-Cheek deployment. He played as a right wing back, and he did very well in this position. It's not the first time, because he has played at Bernabeu and I think against Southampton in that 6-0 win last year for a certain period. But I think that he can be a sort of option if we don't get a right wing back. Ideally, I don't want to get carried away and say that he is Chelsea quality. For me, he is more of a, with all due respect, more of a well-established Premier League mid-table player. But today he played very well in terms of his positioning and in terms of high pressing in this kind of deployment as a right wing back. And another takeaway from the game was Armando Broja's movement. Was very good at getting away from the offside traps and positioning very well, timing his runs very well, but finishing, which is a general problem, ultimately happened for him to be not in the right level either. He missed a sitter in around the middle of the first half, and then he tried to chip their keeper, but he put a fraction of height too much on the ball, and it went over the bar. But it was a good half. I don't know if he will be in the squad for this season. He may easily get loaned, but still it was a good contribution. And as I said, I saw the movement that I want to see from him, especially considering his height and his physicality, which sometimes become difficult for these kind of physical players to find themselves in such high pressing system. But he did very well in this regard. The second half was less active. We scored from the spot. Ruben won it, but still it was a calm period for the majority of the second half. And I think that it was a very good way to round off the preseason in both games. The intensity was good. I just said my only worry, and I will die on that hill, is that we don't actually have a really convincing attack yet compared to the attacks of the other Premier League teams, at least on paper. We have to make those chances we create count, and I really expect another attacker to come this coming month. Before coming back to you, I'm going through. I'm going through some of the comments before going back to you. Udinese nothing should be 5-0 Chelsea. Based on the course of the game, especially yesterday's game, because today the intensity was lower, it could have been a result, because we created sharp chances and couldn't really capitalize on them, as I said. So, but the most important thing is to make sure that you exploit those chances during the season rather than now. And I hope that we will do better, and maybe another attacker will come. Okay, so I'm going back to you, and if you have anything to add on the Udinese Chelsea topic, you can add before we go to the next topic.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd like to add is, I didn't get a watch. I was busy this morning, but just looking here, kind of just the general discussion from the match that I've read from today, the 2-0 win against Udinese. It looks like so Loftus-Cheek was playing that right wing back role, and I think that that's honestly fine if he's going to remain there. We've seen him play wing back a few times. It's been, for the most part, it's never been terrible. And I think that, again, this is preseason, so it's more of a fitness exercise and a performance exercise at the end of the day. However, you still are evaluating performance to some extent. And I think that if he can provide that right wing back, the role he did today, he can foreseeably continue to play there. And the thing is, if we let Azpilicueta go, which I think that he wants to go, and if Cesar wants to go, we should let him go. There's no point to hold him. He's done everything for the club. It's time that we have some grace with the situation and thank him and let him do what he wants to do now towards the very end of his career. If he leaves, we need somebody else at right wing back, and Loftus-Cheek could be that for us. And I think that, I don't think he's ever going to be a starting midfielder for us. He just doesn't have the consistency. He has everything as far as the physical tools go, but we just have seen that doesn't bear out as we know we have maybe hoped it would have in the past. So I think he could play that right wing back role if we're going to continue to use that within our tactical structure and system. And additionally, I think that what he can do is offer a very good offensive threat from that wing back role, which could be very important if Tuchel has overlapping, if he's going to want any overlap between the inside forward and whatever his wing back is. And additionally, you can also, if you're going to have a more attacking minded, highly capable person like Loftus-Cheek getting forward, additionally, it could help you with overload creation. And then from a tactical standpoint, that can maybe create some better attacking movements and hopefully some more final in play or in product with our phases of play. So maybe Loftus-Cheek is somebody that can get a role and carve that out and be that for them or be that for Chelsea. I know a lot of people on Twitter right now are debating, what's going to happen to Loftus-Cheek. Well, I think that we're going to see, I think this is going to be where we either see him accept that he's going to be a role player, and because I don't ever expect him to be a starter for us. That's just not the vision I have. And I think we've just seen too many years of Loftus-Cheek to know what his ceiling is. And we know, although he can provide a pretty decent floor, right, as a player, he has a pretty decent average standard that he has. But I think the issue is more so, what's his ceiling? It's just not a very high ceiling type player as far as the upside that he can offer to make a difference on his own in a match. Although he did score today, how often is he really going to be a goal threat for us? So that's kind of where I'm at with Loftus-Cheek. I know it's an interesting debate. But he's in that time of his career where he will have to accept a role at Chelsea that's probably a non-starting 11 player most, if not, majority of matches, or overwhelming majority, I should say, or he's going to move on. But it seems like he is going to stay. And actually, I'm encouraged by that. I actually would – some things I like about his profile more than Azpilicueta at right wing back. He's, first off, it helps – we were talking about this problem earlier. Loftus-Cheek is a taller person. He is one of those he's just a bigger guy compared to Azpilicueta. So that helps on the aerial threat. You could foreseeably see in some rotation matches at wingback when we're giving Chile and James a rest, you can see Loftus-Cheek and Alonso. Not only is that a huge goal threat offensively, defensively, it gives you an aerial ability that we lack otherwise if we play Azpilicueta and Chilwell or whatever it might be. We get more out of Loftus-Cheek from a defensive aspect than we may realize. And as well, I think that he can continue. He has that passing ability. I mean, he comes from the midfield. He has that ability to pass. And that's going to be huge for us, right? Because we have this kind of, wide, narrow passing structure, generally, loosely speaking. So I think I see that kind of helping. I'm getting a little bit of feedback there. I could definitely see that helping us out as far as to get our pace of play quicker, to be more direct. And I think he could offer that a little bit more than what Azpilicueta can, because he's also Loftus-Cheek when he gets up to full speed and he's dribbling, is a much more dangerous threat than Azpilicueta doing the same. So it's just going to come down to defensively, how does that work? But maybe we deploy maybe we deploy Loftus-Cheek on a rotational matches against low blocks. Maybe we do something like that. But I actually am I'm excited to see him. Maybe he can win this role and actually make something for himself. Because if he can win that wingback role and we stick with the wingbacks, I mean, he could foreseeably have that role as long as Reece. He could have that same role as long as James here. And if James, sometime one day decides he wants a different project, Loftus-Cheek could have plenty of experience. So have to say that, I think that Loftus-Cheek is somebody that's going to be interesting to watch. And, we'll see what he does. So overall, I think that's kind of the big takeaways for me. I mean, Broja, I saw he had that one where he just kind of missed. It was like a perfectly set up chance by Ziyech, and he just kind of missed his chance on that. So I think that's one interesting thing is I know a lot of people have clamored for Broja to get this massive role in the team. And I know, Elgi, you had a tweet about it yesterday that you talked about where you kind of said if we're expecting or hoping that Broja is going to be our leading scorer and, our person that gets the most striker, that we're probably in for a not so pleasant reality when that actually bears out. So and I'm in agreement with you. I think in today, just the little bits I saw kind of, granted, it's not full context, it's not the full 90 minutes that I got to watch, but however, what I did see at Broja today kind of made me have some of those concerns that I had validated a bit more. And I just think that we do need a bit more up top that we still don't have. So we'll see. I think we got to get some more incomings. But if Sterling is going to play that false nine, and maybe that opens up some other roles, maybe that we keep some other players on those wide forwards or those wingers. If Sterling is going to move in, then that can give us basically Broja, Sterling, and Havertz. And I know who I want to start out of those three. If we're going to choose one, it's Sterling all day, every day. I'm one of those guys I think Kai Havertz has all the talent in the world, but we haven't seen it. We just haven't seen it as a Chelsea fan. I'm sorry. I think that's where I'm at with Kai Havertz. This season, I need to see it. I need to see actual production. I need to see goals. I need to see clinical play. I can't see 70% of your big chances missed. We need to see more out of Kai. So if we don't see more out of Kai and we do see a lot of Sterling will need a rotation. But that's kind of the thing is then Broja's third choice. And is that really doing his development best? So I think those are the areas I would watch coming into the season or wing back. And I would be watching what we do up top at that center forward or striker position. So I think that's just to close it out. That's kind of my last few things here on the match reviews and just the preseason in general of what we should maybe look out for or expect going forward.
Yeah, and that's, as you said, the most important thing is that we find the right physical condition for another Premier League season ahead, and we know how important it is to be fully fit in such a demanding competition from all things considered. But still, it's so nice to end the preseason with a win because it lifts the morale and makes sure that the team somewhat finds sort of reward for the work they have done during the week after the Arsenal defeat, which was a reason of apathy that we had, along with missing out on Jules Koundé, which is another mysterious topic, and we'll move to that and the impact that it may have. So with the further development of the transfer window this coming month. So coming to this topic, now we are in a position that can't mention concrete names, unlike the previous episodes. So transfer rumors have somewhat been too dry, too scarce in the last few days. We really hope that things are happening in the background, and maybe the club now wants to be 100% certain before briefing the media on certain progress for specific players, rather than making their interest public and then when it's not a done deal yet or things aren't yet advancing. But this is just a hypothesis, and we will we'll see all of that in the coming days and weeks. Trying now, due to the fact that we don't have concrete names, I'm trying to give the discussion a more general perspective rather than a specific one. My long-standing opinion, so since the beginning of the window, actually, has been one of that we need a minimum of 2 other players along with Sterling and Koulibaly, and this is minimum. Actually, I'd be very happy if we sign 6, and not just for the sake of quantity, but 6 players that would comprehensively improve the squad. But the minimum is 2, which has to do with 1 defender and another attacker, preferably a right winger. We missed out on Rafinha for obvious reason. The fact that we missed out on him doesn't mean that I was 100% sold on the position that he would play in this team. But I mean a right winger in the sense that he could also be comfortable to play in a more central role in the 3-4-2-1 that we have. And I don't think Rafinha would have liked to be to play in that more inverted position. So I don't have any specific name in mind now, but I think the absolute must is a right center back and an attacker. As I said, preferably a right wing attacker, whether he is a wing or right inverted forward. But still, we absolutely need somebody of this profile, because we have already seen how costly the misfiring attack been for the team in the last few years, and especially last year. It was more than evident, especially in the cup final, that we unfortunately lost on the tightest of margins. And one of the key reasons of that, more than the quality of the opposition that kept the score goalless, was the fact that we didn't capitalize on our chances. And this was a repeated refrain during the season as well, despite the inferior quality of the opposition on paper and the course of the game. So I think that's the bare minimum. Then when it comes to midfield and other positions, I think that it would be really dependent on outgoings, and especially when it comes to the left wing back and right wing back backups, whether there is a possibility to sign. That it will be specifically dependent on the futures of Alonso and Aspi, who are yet very unclear, and we can't really give a definite answer on this topic. But still, I can't mention a name in this moment. I have read Benjamin Pavard, Milan Skriniar, or even Wesley Fofana, who has been mentioned for the centre back position in terms of the interest of the club, at least internally, because we haven't had news of an offer being sent for any of them. Skriniar and Pavard for me would be underwhelming signings for the majority of reasons. But Bayern wants Pavard out after signing the league, and I contacted one Bayern fan of mine and he said that he is inconsistent when it comes to defending, and he's not the guy that would really make the defense exciting as a profile. Well, Skriniar can be solid in those cases I have watched Inter. He can be solid off the ball and blocks shots well. His positioning as a guard in front of the keeper is good, but he seems as a typically old school defender, and I don't really believe that he's flexible enough on the ball to make sure that he will be a good fit to absorb and to handle the pressure that Premier League teams generally apply. So, and when we start the build up from the back, and while Fofana is a very interesting name, but I wouldn't get my hopes up specifically for the huge complications that this deal has. He has renewed with Leicester until 2027. had the unfortunate leg break against Villarreal days before they played us in the UEFA Super Cup final around this time last year. So yeah, I mean, there are reasons that would make me optimistic if we sign him, but there should be concrete progress. And as it stands, it's only rumors. And one of those principles I have when it comes to evaluating the possibility of a player switching clubs is to ignore Instagram activity or social media in general.
Yeah, it doesn't mean much.
It's so misleading. It can be as a sort of soul bubble when it gets created and dies immediately. And as it stands, so I can't speak concretely both in terms of defenders and attackers. So I don't know what are your thoughts on the matter, but I think it's more in the context of hope now rather than context of clear-cut names. Of course, it may change very soon, and we know how we signed Koulibaly. It was one day before it was just an alternative, and the next day it was practically done. And we hope to see that kind of progress very soon. But as it stands, I can now talk in general rather than specifically. So that's the impression that we have, and we hope that we'll get some signings done from now till the end of the window. And also, it's a moment when the speed of materialization is key, because there is no preseason anymore. So the new signings will be put straight into the first team and combine the process of adaptation with the importance of getting results and have great performances. So before going back to Strat, please, before going back to Trev, in order to follow the discussion, please like and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate your support, and it's very important that you enjoy our discussions and become part of it. So, Trev, what's your thoughts on the transfer matters as it stands?
Yeah, so we missed out obviously on Koundé, and it sounds like we missed out on Koundé because we basically decided we didn't want him anymore. That's kind of what the comments from Monchi are suggesting when he was talking about what's going on there, which was basically, Chelsea had a deal, player agreed terms, and we were going to go ahead, and then all of a sudden Chelsea basically backtracked and decided that maybe we have more questions about this move than we thought, and they pretty much just let it die, and then he went to Barcelona. So that's what's actually come out now, the information from the director of Sevilla himself, their director of football. So with that said, I think it kind of debunks the narrative that Barcelona hijacked the move. It's more so that we let them hijack the move because we decided we weren't going to pursue it any further, which I don't know. I was and I tweeted it out like not long afterwards. I was never really a huge fan of Koundé. I thought if we signed him, he's literally just an Azpilicueta replacement, and that we would probably have more concerns playing a back four with him as one of those two main guys than we might realize, because his defensive positioning is just not what we need right now. Granted, he can get forward and create attacks, and he can do a lot of different things that are further up the pitch well. But the last thing we need is another person that gets too far up the pitch, leaving their defensive zones exposed. That's the last thing we need right now, is we do not have a defensive midfielder that's going to drop and cover that, right? We don't have that profile of defensive midfielder, or at least we maybe Jorginho can drop and cover if that guy goes forward, Koundé. But anyway, I don't think that was going to be a good deal. So I'm actually not upset with the fact that we lost out on Jules Koundé. And also the other thing about Koundé is we chased him for 3 transfer windows and never made a deal happen. So I don't really know how much he was interested in the move to begin with. So, and how much the club were interested. And another reason why I wasn't big on it, and I hate to say this, but it was supposedly a board target, not a new ownership. They were trying to basically get a target from the previous ownership had already worked on to simply get somebody through the door that Tuchel sort of approved of. So I'm not really upset about losing out on Koundé. I didn't really see the hype. I didn't see it. He had a release clause of like 70 or 80 million euros, and I never saw a player worth that fee. So that's my takeaway from Koundé. that's kind of not a bit. Well, it's not cried over spilled milk because it wasn't very good milk to start with. Like, if that makes sense for anybody metaphorically, I'm just not really gonna lose any sleep over that at all in the slightest. So, now I still think we need a center back. We can't just get Koulibaly and call this good. I mean, Colwell, we don't know. We just don't know. I'm not saying he can't be good. I'm not saying he can't be bad. I'm just saying I don't know because we literally have no objective reference point to measure Colwell in the Premier League because he's never been in the Premier League. So if we don't have any objective data, yeah, I mean, when he went in the championship, which is okay, great. You're in the championship. A lot of players that we've had come through loan that have been good in the future have had successful spells in the championship. However, objectively speaking, no fan can sit here and tell me that they have a point of reference to judge Colwell in a top flight league because it doesn't exist. Okay, so that's where I think the argument around Colwell gets a little absurd is that people act like, well, he's going to be this world-beating center back if you just let him play right now. I mean, he's realistically 7 to 10 years off of a world beater type center back, world class, level. I mean, so are we supposed to wait 9 to 10 years? That's not how it works. So there's too much uncertainty there, and I'm not willing to place a ton of faith. I would rather him go on a Premier League loan and prove it, much like Conor Gallagher did, and others in RLC. Others before him have done this. So that's kind of where I think we have to still address the position. We have Colwell. I don't think it's going to be enough as even, and we have Chalobah, who has, kind of has a few injuries throughout his time at Chelsea. We have a 38-year-old Thiago Silva that will need heavy load management and rotation if we want to keep him healthy. And then additionally, Koulibaly is a little bit up there in age as well. So I think we need to target a younger, more experienced profile of center back. And I think when you realistically look at those options, I think the two that really stick out for me are Milan Skriniar from Inter Milan and then Wesley Fofana from Leicester City. But the one I'm more interested in personally would probably be the Fofana move. I think that he has a higher upside than Skriniar. Although if we went for Skriniar, I think he'd be an amazing signing. He's better in a back four than he is in a back three from what I have personally seen of him at Inter Milan. And I think that he also has, he is a very accomplished player. He would come in as basically ascending right into the peak of his career. But what I like about Fofana more is not only is he younger, I think he has a higher ceiling than Skriniar. I think, and he also has been playing in the Premier League because we have now seen for a couple seasons signings from Serie A and or the Bundesliga that come into the Premier League tend to not be quite the same player they were because first off, if you watch Serie A, the pace of play is so much slower than the Premier League. So that's an adaptation period. Can Skriniar adjust to that pace of play, that we're going to have in the Premier League compared to what they have in Serie A? That is a question. I think that, however, sometimes that the Premier League experience or Premier League proven, I think it's sometimes by fans a little overstated, but I can't say that it's massively overstated. It still is a concern because there's no objective reference point for Skriniar in the Premier League, but there is one for Fofana. And I think that we know what Fofana offers. We know he can succeed. I think he's younger. He has a higher ceiling. And I think the fees would probably be pretty similar. So I would be really intrigued if we actually continue to go for him and make this move more of a reality or at least explore it in more concrete terms. Just for anybody that's watching out there, if you haven't, please go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. Again, me and Elgie really appreciate everything and all of you tuning in and leaving comments. It means a lot to us. And going to continue the conversation a bit here now. I just think that, Fofana would be somebody that offers a longer term, like 3 to 5 year view of, playing as a center back. And the other thing too, I'd say is, we hear sometimes people talk about let's make signings that will last for 10 years at Chelsea, a decade. Well, when you go back almost, I think it's like 7 or 8 years of data, we have surprisingly few players that last even 5 seasons, let alone over 5 seasons. It's a very, very small number of players that last at a club more than 5 years. So that's why I don't want to get into this conversation of, well, if we sign him, we solve the position for a decade. So that's just not how football works. This is, in real life, players are, have their own careers, and it's just not as static as it might appear for some. So that's where I'm at. I think defensively, let's go after Fofana or Skriniar. Now we've also seen. I'm going to probably butcher his name. He's the center back from Leipzig, Gavardiol or something like that. Again, I'm probably butchering his name. I can spell it. Yeah, correct me on my pronunciation. Sometimes I'm just not going to get it. Sometimes I feel like Ian Hartitz here trying to pronounce names, but so I think that's, maybe somebody else we could look at, because I think what really interests me about him so much is he has this incredible ball playing ability. He has a very, very good ability to get the ball, dribble in, basically break lines with dribbling, and then release players through in on goal, which, granted, that could be a function of the Bundesliga, how they play these ridiculously high lines and everybody just exploits space in behind. Could be a function of that. However, I mean, what I see from him, though, I'm very intrigued with. And I think those three options, we should really, be targeting one of those three and get one more of those center backs in. And then I think if we could get one of those center backs in, then that kind of squares away our position there. We're going to have enough center backs, whether Colwell stays or goes on loan or a permanent move, whatever it is. I don't know what his own personal preferences. I don't talk to Colwell. None of us really as fans are talking to any of these players, so we don't know what their own intentions are or any of that. So, yeah, I think as far as center backs, that's who I would be most intrigued with. Are there any of those three that stick out to you as one you would rather have the most between Vardiol and Skriniar and Fofana?
As I said, my first preference among the three would be Fofana, due to the fact, as you said, he knows the Premier League and the fact that he has a higher ceiling, and I agree on that. But we seemingly have disagreements on the excitement level that Skriniar signing, a possible signing, could bring. I don't maybe have also too much time during the year to watch other leagues beside Premier League with a very close eye. But as far as I'm concerned, I have noticed this, that he's a very solid defender for old school systems, somewhat of a Gary Cahill profile, if I can make a sort of comparison in terms of the way they defend, while on the ball, and especially in the back three, as you said, when his angles of passing are closed, he has difficulty to find his mates vertically, and that's what really disturbs me, knowing that the pace of the Premier League is so becoming higher and higher. But another downside regarding Fofana's possible signing, which I have seen that has been ignored by some people. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he may. When the Africa Cup of Nations is played, we may lose both him and Koulibaly there. So he plays for Nigeria, right, Fofana? If I'm not wrong. So for this reason, I think it would be a bit costly, considering that we miss two defenders unless they change the rules, because I have seen somewhere that it may be staged once in 4 years, like the other national competitions involving nations in the other continents. But if it keeps being staged like once in 2 years, and especially in that key period, January, February, it may mean that we lose actually three players of our back line in Mendy, Koulibaly, and Fofana, and we gain scars in that direction. It may not be a convincing reason, and I have to clear myself, to clarify myself, when that this isn't a reason that would make me reluctant to go for him, but it is something that ultimately I'm sure that those at the club will take into consideration for the further impact it may have, because it would be too costly to lose, let's say, 60 or 70% of your back line for a month once in 2 years. So I don't know what will happen, but as a profile, is very. I don't want to sound pessimistic, but this summer I don't really see how it can be materialized unless the player pushes it himself very strongly. And still, we know that Leicester aren't the easiest of clubs to negotiate with. We know how they made Man United spend 80 million euros on Maguire. We didn't fall into a kind of financial trap. And one of the positives with Marina, I would say, I have criticized her a lot, but one of the positives, and still do in some extent, but one of the positives she had was driving Chilwell's asking price down, so by a large extent from 80 million to 50 million with add-ons included, and this was something very intriguing. I don't know if we can do it with Fofana if we decide to go all out for him, but still, as it stands, it's still in the context of rumors, and I want to see concrete stuff happening very soon. Another wild card option for me would be answering to your question, Fofana for me would be the most convincing of the three. I'm saying that the Leipzig defender, as you mentioned, if I'm wrong with the pronunciation, it's not that he doesn't have the ceiling, but it's that kind of cultural impact when you don't know the league, that you may need a sort of time to adapt to the pace of the Premier pace of Bundesliga so in his case. And another wild card that I don't know how realistic it can be either is Adam Webster from Brighton. To mention his name because on the ball has been good with both feet as far as I'm concerned. I haven't checked his stats a lot. I saw actually at BRF when there was the list of the stats, it was better than other names that I have searched for, but it could be an intriguing option if we want to gamble on the other defensive profile compared to that we want to sign along with Koulibaly. But as it stands, in generally just a general, so it's just a it's not the phase of specific discussion yet, but we hope to see progress soon because the league starts in a week's time. We need signings as soon as possible. I had a comment in the chat in terms of attackers. Somebody was proposing that we go for Mertens on a free or Depay on loan, if I'm not wrong. Have to say that whether it's right or not, but my conclusion of what I have seen from many people during these days is that they are trying to shelter for average quality on the profiles they want, both in terms of defense and attack. And this is the worst thing that can happen when you are pushed by panically. I have to express myself clearly that neither of Saint-Maximin, Zaha, and maybe even Depay would be promising enough. They may be just profiles that would seem sort of exciting on paper due to a specific skill or another. For example, Depay may have that link up playing tight areas that he developed at Lyon or even at Barcelona at the Netherlands national team. And Saint-Maximin has his dribbling and work on the ball, which catches people's eyes. Maybe same with Zaha to an extent. But for me, it's clear and obvious that any of them is Chelsea quality. I get those who propose Depay's name on loan due to it being a possibility of having a low risk, high reward, but still I can't see him being the profile that we really need for the attack. And the fact that we haven't have an acquiring attack doesn't mean that we should go for every name that pops up in the market, just because of a past accomplishment of them or a specific ability that they may have, but they have to back it with another features. And I don't think that Maxima, Zaha, or even Depay into that category. Also, I think that ship has sailed now, and if he was signed maybe 3 or 4 years earlier, specifically during the time that we went for Gonzalo Higuain, for example, be very open to the move. But now it's not the case, and I don't see him making any deals, despite him being a profile that would provide versatility in principle. But I don't think he's at the right age and physical levels to contain Premier League. So among the names being mentioned, I don't think anyone is intriguing enough, and we hope to see progress on more Chelsea level names very soon. Some of the comments in the chat say the Undertaker CFC PSG does not want to pay 60 million for Skriniar. I mean, this is one of the reasons that may catch our attention due to PSG not finalizing a deal with Inter. It was expected to happen, and Inter would possibly sign Bremer, who went from Torino to Juventus. Now it hasn't happened. I don't think it has to do with the price more than with the fact that what he can offer. He'll be a very solid defender, I think, but off the ball. But on the ball, I have my reservations, as I said. And let's see some other comments before coming to another very interesting topic.
Yeah. I was going to follow up a little bit. I was gonna ask you a little bit about you're talking about some of the attacking options like Saint Maximin and stuff like that. I was just gonna say I don't think that Saint Max is gonna move the needle. I just can't see him being what we offer. Like, he doesn't press. He basically all he does is dribble. That's it. We already got that. We got a higher pressing version.
With all due respect, he's more of a juggler.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear you. It cut out a little bit. Oh, I think you're back now, Elgie. What'd you say?
In terms of the characteristics that he shows, he's more of a juggler or a kind of player that gives that impression through working with the ball, rather than a footballer, all things considered. So his shooting, pressing, as you said, and other attributes that distinguish a footballer from a freestyler aren't there yet. So with all due respect, I don't think that he provides much. Besides and trickery with the ball, and I don't think we really need such a profile at the moment.
So we have a comment here from Strip Bear. Was born Chelsea, very cool with my club loves. Yep. Let's see what we do. I think the new ownership has done a good job with the club so far. Just everything that I've heard, everything, all things considered, I think we've done a good job. Feel pretty comfortable with where we are and who we have. And, we'll see. I think that we're going to see continued use of the academy. We're going to see continued use of the women's team with ownership. Strip Bear, I'd be very excited about the future. I think it's a very bright, positive future for us. So looking forward to it as well. Hoping that Bowley does the best with our club is the same. So appreciate the comment as well and the dedication. And anybody out there that's still listening, if you can, please, if you have not already, like and subscribe, like this video, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate that, as always. Moving on a little bit, just to kind of go on from there. I think it will be interesting to see what we do. I guess I would ask you this, Elgie. What's and I'll start. I think that we need one more piece of the puzzle within this team. I think that we have depth. I think we have rotation with what we can offer. I think if we can get one more center back, we'll have that squared away. We have central midfielders, all across. I think that's the truth here, is just that's the way it works. Like we still have this attacking problem though, and I think that Sterling will help solve this. But if he's going to be shoehorned into false nine, okay, then we need some other wingers. So I'll still put it out there, and this is something I've had plenty of discussions with people about. I think our biggest need right now is we just simply need a chance creator that plays out wide. That's what we need. I thought Hakeem Ziyech would be that player for us. I'm a huge fan of Ziyech. I still like what he does. I like the profile of what he does. It just doesn't, unfortunately, work within Tuchel's structure. So I'll ask, I think it's a chance creation issue that we need to improve upon, especially because we don't have highly clinical players in our attack. And when you don't have highly clinical players, you're not going to be converting an abnormally high rate of chances. So how do you compensate for that? You just create more chances, right? It becomes almost a volume thing at that point. It literally becomes a quantity over quality at that point. So I think we need a way higher quantity of chances if we want to get second place and close this gap to the title and stop losing the title race by 20 plus points every single season. And really, ostensibly, not even being involved with the title after the month of November. We have to have that pattern stop. And I don't think that we're going to make that pattern stop until we get a higher amount of chance creation. And I think when we get that higher chance creation, we'll get more goals. That gap gets lessened because we get 3 points out of a draw more often, right? We have a draw, we score, we get 3 points instead of the 1 point. That's going to be a huge difference for us. So that's where I'm at. I think that we need to have somebody like that. And I don't think that players like Saint Maximin, I don't think that he offers a chance creation winger. I don't see him being in that role. We talked about Rafinha as one of the players. I don't think he was going to be a chance creating winger for us either. I think Sterling, if he can, like I said, he can use that dribbling ability to break down low blocks, create cutbacks, create crosses, create shots, whatever it might be. Once he's in on goal, he could maybe offer that. I still think we need more. I just don't think we can persist with what we have, especially if we're going to essentially use Sterling as the main goal scorer in a center forward false nine role. So I would say, we've got, I'm looking through the comments here. We've got a lot of going on about St. Max. I just am not sure if he's going to be quite the player that we offer. Right, in a perfect world, what I would go for is basically Angel Di Maria 5 years ago. Like that's who I would be targeting, is something like that. A guy who is going to create chances and just sort of plays on the wing, does a lot for you, mostly in the offensive third. I'm not terribly concerned with a winger that needs to press all the way back to cover a back line. I mean, I just don't think we need a defensive type player in that role anymore. So I think we need a chance creator within that role. That's what I would identify most. We just need to have quantity of chances at this point over quality of chances. You still want to try to maximize the quality. I would if 5 years ago, I'd be targeting like somebody like Di Maria, but I think that he's a little too old at this point. He just signed a deal with Juventus anyway, and it just kind of, for a lot of reasons, wouldn't make sense. But I think we need somebody in that profile of player that would offer that. I thought that Dembele was somebody that could have offered that, but we didn't get that deal done. I never thought Rafinha was going to offer it. I don't think St. Max is going to offer it. I think Sterling could offer it, but then if we're going to use Sterling in that role, we need an additional attacker, and especially in the striking position. So I don't think that as of right now, I don't think Kai Havertz is going to be, based on what I've seen. This is caveating with a lot of things. What I've seen for 2 years, he is not good enough to lead the line. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. I don't think his best position is center forward either. I think he's better, probably more as an attacking midfielder that's going to be involved in more middle and final third pressing. I just think we need a better goal scorer. But I will caveat it with this. We don't need to go blow 80, 90 million on a striker, an attacker. I think we should look for attackers that are more. Well, I want to see us sign players that are going to be taking steps from a club that's here and then taking a step up to Chelsea. I want us to sign players that are taking steps up in there. I don't want to see us signing these more, lateral move players like Lukaku going from winning an Inter to coming to Chelsea. It's really much of a lateral move. I want to see us target players. And we heard this last season in the preseason when we maybe had some interest in Danny Ings. I think that would have been a great signing for us. He would have been come in. He would not have demanded to start every match. He has proven production, and he's just a role player. He has tons of experience. He's played for many types of different clubs in many different situations within the Premier League table. And I just think that we need to target something like that. If we're going to use Sterling as the chance creator, we need to target a more low-key signing. We don't need to go target these massive, expensive strikers because, quite frankly, we fail on pretty much all of our massive, expensive strikers to begin with. How many of them do we get right? Diego Costa was the last one. And I would even argue we didn't even get Costa that right because the guy wanted to leave after 2 seasons. 2 seasons here, and he was kind of over it. In the midst of a title campaign, with Antonio Conte under the revolutionary formation that was blowing the reality. Sorry, go ahead, Elgi.
Yeah, that's the reality. I have had debates myself regarding Diego status, and it triggered some people once when I tweeted it maybe a month ago, and I said that if we had been spot on with our striker signings, then Diego maybe have been as appreciated as he is now as the second best forward option after Drogba in the last decade. But I think more than Diego's profile himself, in principle, it comes down to the fact that we have been spot off with our attacking signings, which makes him indirectly a player to remember for some. But still, I can't see full praise for him. He didn't really. He was very good at his best, but his best only came before the 31st of December. And after the 31st of December, he became another player with his head elsewhere. And what is significant for me is he didn't bother to learn the language, which is one of the cultural aspects that you have to consider when you adapt in a new country, and he didn't do that. And the fact that he isn't without a club at more or less 30 years of age demonstrated that he was rated also to an extent by major parts of the fan base. But so if you wanted to say anything, Karen, about the attacking option?
I think. I don't know. I'm not sure on that one. I think as far as our attacking options, I'm looking here at some of the comments we've got. I was just looking at some of the comments before your question. And, we've got this idea here. We need Strip Bear was saying that we needed, kind of this a box striker, more of a box to box, like poacher, something like that. Remember, not box to box. Sorry, I'm getting my terms mixed up here. More of like a in the box type striker, right? And I think we need that too, because so many times, like when I watch us, we just don't even have somebody will throw a cross and there's literally nobody there. There's not even anybody in the box or even near the goalkeeper, and it's just so I would agree with that too. I was going to just and for anybody there, please go ahead and like, subscribe. We means a lot to us. You guys are all tuning in. We've also got Depay here. Memphis Depay from Barcelona as a potential option. I just don't think he moves the needle much either. There's a comment here that Tuchel probably wants to use Sterling like he used Alba at Dortmund, and I think that'd be great if we did. Kind of that goal scorer.
It's not a bad thing if we deploy Sterling in that kind of role, because he has played at Liverpool centrally.
Yeah.
I remember now one of those solo goals he used to score there was against us in the by the name of League Cup, Capital One Cup at the time, semi-final in 2015, first leg at Anfield. And we opened the scoring through a penalty from Aiden. And second half, he demonstrated such quality on the ball that he is showing now. So he was too raw at the time, not the kind of experienced player that he is now. He's much more mature, but he still took the ball from more or less halfway. So let's say 30, 25 meters from our goal, and then went past the defenders and one-on-one with Courtois. He and so it's not a novelty to give him a more freelance role rather than the more system-based role that he has had at City. But I agree with you when you say that we need a chance creator and would go another level beyond that. Ideally, a chance creator and a goal scorer in one. You mentioned Dembele, but I don't really think that would have provided as many goals as we would have wanted him to provide. One player that I would have really liked to see here before he went to City was Grealish for what he did at Villa, and I think that he would fill that role creator very well due to what we saw in that system. At City, he also plays wide and in a more rigid way of deployment. At Villa, he was less rigid, so he had the ability to position himself between the lines, and his weight of pass in particular was so good. And even when he played certainly in the half and also when he played wide, I think it would find the teammates with some kind of well-crafted passes that were very interesting to see. For obvious reason, the price was considerably high, and there now, but such kind of profile combined with the ability to score regularly, I think could be what we need at the moment.
Let me throw this name out here.
Go ahead.
I was going to say to that point, Elgie, I was going to say, let me throw this name out here because I think it could foreseeably be a possibility given the fact that this club just purchased a player that will kind of occupy the same positions and minutes. Bayern Munich just bought Sadio Mane. So what are they going to do with Leroy Sané? They still have Serge Gnabry as well. They still have Thomas Muller as well. So what are they going to do there? They have Musiala coming up through the ranks as well. They have a lot of people for those positions. So I think Leroy Sané, we know what he offers. We've seen him at Man City, and he's tailed off a bit since he went to Bayern Munich. But I think he's still one of the best players that we could target. I mean, he would immediately come in and start on the wings over any of the players we have, assuming that Sterling is going to be played more in this false nine central role. I think Sané would be amazing for us. I mean, I know what he offers. He's still fairly young. In the comments here, they say that they also have Kingsley Coman. So they've got Coman, Gnabry, Mane, Muller, Musiala. I mean, they have so many players up there in those positions. And, we got another comment. Bayern will use him, Mane on the right and Sané on the left. Okay, well, again, like even if we couldn't get Leroy Sané, Serge Gnabry could also be an option as well. His chance creation, though, I'm not as positive. As far as chance creation, he's a lot. He's a little lower than Sané in that regard, especially assists. But you look at a lot of the other stuff that he does. He's kind of very similar. Maybe that's more of a product of them being in the same system.
But the issue is that he just renewed.
Yeah, that's right. He did just renew. So you're right. He did. Now I forgot that. So you're right. So Sané would be the one I would go for. Yeah. I think we know he can play in the Premier League. The Bundesliga is a good enough fit. For what he does. But we also know that Premier League wise, he's done it. He did it with City. And look at what we did. We just took one of City's attackers, and he's probably immediately our best attacker that we have. So. I think Sané could come in and do that job for us. But somebody's saying I don't watch a ton of the Bundesliga. I know what Sané's quality is. I know if he's not very good for Bayern, then maybe that's just another opportunity for us to snatch him up. I think that again, even it's somebody that would work for us. There's a comment here from Undertaker CFC about Jonathan David. He's the Canadian forward. He's a striker, more central player. I think he'd be great as well. He's a really good player. He's had a lot of success now in his club as well as his national team, generated a lot of noise. And I think he's somebody that would help us in that regard, but more so in the case that Sterling will play out wide. Yeah, coach
My
right
issue
here. We have 7 wingers and don't play with wingers, which is a good point. You know, we try to continually make wingers into these like inside left and right forwards as opposed to just kind of going with an actual wide presence. And I think we're married to 3 at the back here. I would say we're married to 3 at the back because we just don't have the center backs capable of playing a back 4 system. You know, with Silva being the age he is, and he really, when you look at the back 4 and how he's done in it at Chelsea, it's not been very good. You know, Rudiger was not signed to play a back 4. He was signed by Antonio Conte to play back 3, and that's what he played at Roma, if I'm not mistaken there. So I think that's why we're stuck on it. We just don't have the profile of defensive players. And then when we look at our midfield profile, we don't really have the exact midfield profile with this is a key statement here. With this group of center backs, we don't have a midfield profile that works well in a back 4. That's what I'm going to say. I don't think that it's because Jorginho can't play a back 4. He won the Euros playing back 4, and he was one of the best players in the whole tournament. So I think that narrative is very loose at best. And, you know, there's an idea here. Mason Mount is Lampard 2.0. That is more of what I have seen Mount in the attacking phases. I haven't seen him as an out-and-out forward. I've seen him more as a attacking mid or even just a straight-up center midfielder. That's what I agree here with Coach Chris. That's more the profile I see for Mount. And I don't think that I don't think that if we're going to switch to a back 4, there's no reason to keep log jamming Mount into the attack every match, right? Let's put him in the midfield. That's where he's going to be more realized with his potential, I think, anyway. It's great that he can score goals, and it's great that he can create some up there as a forward. But look, let's let him do that from further back. And with the Lampard 2.0 comment, let's let Mount arrive late to the box and be that last guy that nobody tracked and then smash those balls into the net. I mean, Lampard did that so many times. His timing was so well. And I think that can replicate that as well, have a better overall effect on the team from the central midfield position. So, you know, I think that's I would agree that that's kind of the issue here. But as far as why we're, you know, maybe not getting the most out of Mount or, you know, kind of his best profile of player, I would be targeting other positions. I would be targeting somebody, you know, I know we have a lot of wingers. I don't think that we have wingers that work. Or if we do need a chance creation winger, we have a guy that can do that. His name is Hakeem Ziyech. But I have seen enough to kind of subtly think that Ziyech and Tuchel don't see eye to eye on things. That's where I'm at with that dynamic. And it's a shame because I love Ziyech as a player, somebody I would love to have and be, you know, basically just tell him you have a free role on the right side, help create attacks. You know, it'd be a shame too if Riyad Mahrez wasn't at City. That's a player I would love to see us get to help chance creation. So that's I'll turn it over to you, Elgie. Like, who are some of the kind of options you think for those types of profiles, whether that be a striker centrally or more of a chance creating winger? Who do you think are some of the guys that could best realize that potential for us?
As it stands, it's too tough to give names.
So yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is that it's easy to find names in principle, but it's tough to find releases, and that's the problem. So
yeah, there's just not that many people. Like, I mean, there's just not that many options to pursue.
Yeah, even if, for example, Jarrod Bowen last year had a successful season compared to West Ham, us at London Stadium. He scored twice against Man City. He helped them in tricky games in their Europa League campaign, and earned the spot in the national team as well through those. And also, if you see, stats are decent to consider for a player of such profile, and at his best could add up for us as that kind of maybe low-key signing in terms of the hype around the player and the fact that he is from inside the league rather than a kind of more exciting name from road, but still he could be a decent option if we choose to revert to a back four system anytime when we actually have the personnel. Because the problem with him is that I don't really see him as a inverted forward. So he's more of a right winger, not of Ziyech's capabilities. Who is more of a creator rather than a dribbler or somebody who can carry the ball way much. But still, there are two players for me that loves to use the wing, either in terms of cutting inside or going towards the byline. They're still love to play as a right winger specifically. Well, as it stands, it's tough to find names that are specifically made for our system, which where width is kept more from the right wing backs rather than the attackers. So that's the key point. And somebody in the chat mentioned Jonathan David. He is a talent, but my worry with him is that Lille has played in a 4-4-2 a lot in both in the French league and also in the Champions League against us. And these kind of players are specifically made for counter-attacking systems. And the last thing we want now is to sign somebody who can be good, but in the team he actually plays, but when he comes here he can be a bad fit. And that's what I fear for him, due to the style that Lille have used. Very good decoy and player who can play very well in a two, link up and also collect possession, drop back, and also and provide speed and pose danger to the opposition. But we don't get that style that he has been used to playing at Lille. So that's my worry regarding him. So Bowen is a name that intrigues me, but I don't know how he fits in the current system that we play in a 4-2-3-1, 3-4-2-1. So and the complex of things that make the question difficult. I think whether if we find another kind of attacking profile, we have to make sure that he is a creator, as you said, 2 a goal scorer, and 3 somebody who shouldn't come to play as a wing back, but somebody who can be used similarly to Sterling, that can be flexible all around the attack in the last 20-25 meters, and can be a very good goal scoring and chances creation option. So that's the key. As it stands, there are scarce realistic names, but hopefully we'll sign a profile that we need. I'm against, in principle, signing a 9, because this system doesn't require points of reference, unless he's a kind of Harry Kane or Benzema, those kind of profiles that can be universal. But for other players, I think that we need attackers who are out and out rather than wingers in particular, who wouldn't find space in our current system, or even center forwards when we don't play with the center forwards. The complexity of our system combined with the complexity of the market makes it very tough for me to mention a specific name. Now, moving to the last topic of the show, the Premier League season starts 1 week today, I think, this time. So yeah, this time I just checked the time. This time next week we'll be playing at Goodison against Everton. And before coming to my thoughts, I wanted to ask you, Trevor, about your early expectation. I know it's not the moment to make maybe some kind of 100% logical and totally down to earth predictions, because we haven't yet kicked a ball in the new season of Premier League, and we just finished preseason, and more or less same with the other clubs. But I want to hear your thoughts on your early expectations for the season ahead. Maybe not just in the Premier League, but also in cup competitions and in the Champions League. We have to bear in mind that this season we play less games than last year, which had its positives that gave us the opportunity to trophies and the Club World Cup, two prestigious trophies in a sense that you don't always compete in them. But we have we'll have a considerably low, let's say a lower number of fixtures rather than the number of 63 we played despite the injury and COVID problems. So yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on the matter and what are your early expectations season as a whole.
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of a sinking feeling then for this season. I do think we are going to see a lot of the old continual issues still rear their head a lot this season. I think that we don't have as much tactical flexibility as we'd like to think we do. I don't really feel comfortable with Kai Havertz leading the line for 75-80% of the matches. I'm not really comfortable with the lack of depth we have at striker. I don't really understand why we still have so many wingers, but none of them get played at winger. I just don't have the best feeling for this season. And the reason why is, at the Orlando match last week, it was just a really frustrating game. It sucked. We just got blown off the pitch by Arsenal, and I was there for it. I was worried by the performance. Granted that it is preseason, we just didn't even look like we could generate attacks, let alone threaten Arsenal. So that's my first issue right there. Is that when you take what happened last week against Arsenal, you take that in sequence with what Tuchel said after the match is basically, well, nothing gets better because I have the same players. That's not good. That makes me think that behind the scenes things are not as good as we like to think they are. Right? We have like Timo Werner has essentially no chance right now. I think he's probably should leave if he can. I think Cho. I'm with me in the whole Cho conversation. I've had enough of it, honestly. And I think he has enough talent and everything, but I think that too many times fans still want to think that he's 18 years old with one of the highest talent ceilings, and that's just not what's panned out. We're in 2022, not 2018. A lot's changed since then, and I just want to hope that Cho gets minutes. Maybe we loan him out to see what he does, and then if the loan goes well, we sell him next season or we keep him in the team, something like that. I just don't really like the profile of what we're going for at this point. We need to close the gap, but we're not really doing things that I think are going to ostensibly close that gap much. I still see us losing, to the title by 20 plus points, and I think that we'll miss out on second by 10 to 15. So it's just tough. I don't know what we're going to. I expect us to get third or fourth, but I expect the same stuff. I don't think we're closing the gap this season. That's kind of my, 30,000 foot view of the coming into this season and where I think we end up and why I think we end up there. But you might differ from me on that. Maybe you're more optimistic than I am, but I'm looking for a third, fourth with a big gap between first and second.
No, listen, it's not a case of being optimistic like out of nothing. And if you have seen my tweets after the Arsenal game, I was everything but optimistic in the sense that we showed a totally lethargic performance, and those comments you mentioned from Thomas Tuchel in the post-match press conference were indicative of actually the reality. Like, you can't really have the manager justify his players, especially in this club, and after more or less 18 or 19 months of working with them and they showing no signs of improvement, you can't really excuse such basic and lackluster performances week in, week out. So, there are things that go beyond the press conference, but it's rather than worrying about what's happening behind the scenes, I think that he did the right thing to call them out and to make sure that the owners are aware of the situation and the fact that you can't really repair broken glass or because that's where it's up to with Werner and other profiles that we actually have in attack. But it's Werner because he has been the one that maybe older than the others, and ironically is showing no signs of improvement. Actually, he's showing signs of regress compared to his first season, where he had some negatives but also some positives to show for. So I think at this particular moment, I don't want to. If we did this show before yesterday's game, I would be totally with you. Yesterday's game, I'm not getting carried away, but it gave me a sort of a breath of fresh air compared to what we had.
Yeah.
And for this, I want to be optimistic that things may improve both in the market and on the pitch coming in the coming weeks. My expectations is that we'll still be trying to close the gap, and that's so if we pretend other stuff, it depends also on the course of the season. That now we can't say, or maybe on the other signings that we may make these last 4 or 5 weeks of the transfer window. But still, it's a case of being cautiously optimistic on what we have based on yesterday's game when we played with the right tempo, and hopefully this has been a reaction for the team as a whole to start the season ahead. And I really do hope that we will have a very. I'm afraid to talk about the FA Cup. It has become a sort of nightmare for me due to our disappointing, campaigns going up to 99%, and then not lifting the trophy in 3 of the occasions. So that's the thing, that you don't want to be too hopeful, not because of the fact that we can't have a eventually leave the trophy in all our cup competitions, including the Champions League. We know that we were barely and unfairly, in a sense, out of the competition due to the fact that the performance we had in the second leg at Bernabeu didn't warrant an elimination, an exit. But still, it's a case of avoiding a disappointment when it comes to the moment that those 50-50 moments, and kind of Didier Drogba profile, an attack that would lean the balance towards us from the equilibrium point, and that's what bothers me the most at this moment. So I think that it's a must that we should sign another attacker to make sure that we have a smooth league campaign. It's not the moment to talk about a position. I think maybe we'll, as I said, we'll be still chasing to close the gap, but still I'm hopeful that we will win trophies. We won last year trophies, and we were too close to winning 4. We won 2, but still the club has in its DNA the quest of winning trophies, and I think should strive for that, to work on that despite the departures and the changes in personnel that we may have, and we hope that they will improve the team rather than downgrade it. And the point as a whole, so this point is a context, expectations in terms of hope for a very positive season and things becoming better and better in the weeks to come, rather than a well thought and constructive way of analyzing the situation. However, we must make sure, as I said, to sign a minimum of 2 players in order to have a successful campaign, both in the league and also in the cup competitions, because they can be also very important to lift the spirits of the fan base and make sure that we win silverware also in the season to come. Fraser HK says, I don't think I can take a final loss. No one can take it. And even to this point, we had the FA Cup final 4th of May, and now we are so 2 months and a half later, and I still haven't 100% got over it due to especially the manner we lost and the disappointment we had in both previous scenarios. In the League Cup final, which was very similar to the FA Cup final, games were pretty balanced, and then we were in the wrong side of the luck twice, and same happened at Bernabeu. So we hope that these kind of things will change, both in terms of luck and also both in terms of signing attackers. So we make sure that we do our best not to leave things at the hands of luck, but so have the cutting edge to make it 51% compared to 49 for the opposition rather than 50-50. So that's my point on it. So okay, that was another episode of the show. It was really enjoyable. I think it's the last episode before the season starts. So maybe this time next week we'll go back to the usual schedule of hosting it at 2 p.m. UK time, when we will do a preview of our first match of the season against Everton. And of course, the show will become more dynamic in the sense of going through the games, also combining them with transfer activity that the club will have. With that, I have the opportunity, take the opportunity again to thank Gerard for his availability to come and to host another show with me. It's a pleasure as always. So thanks a lot for that, and hopefully this time we discussed a Chelsea result which ended in win and another performance against Udinese, and I hope that enjoyable streams in this way will carry on during the course of the season. Thanks to everyone in the chat for their support. As we also said during the stream, please like and subscribe before we round it off, in order not to miss any new shows of our new episodes of our show, and also about the episodes of the other shows of the channel. With that, I so appreciate everyone's for tuning in, and hopefully you'll be there for this time. So at 2 p.m. UK time next week to talk about the Everton preview and hopefully transfer activity that we'll have. So thanks a lot and cheers.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Elgi. Great time as always.
Thank you, Sam.